Welcome to The Explainer. You ever wonder if you've got what it takes to be an entrepreneur? Well, it turns out there's no single way to build something amazing. Today, we're going to dive into 5 totally distinct personalities that are out there driving innovation and creating new things from scratch. It's a question a lot of us have probably kicked around, and believe me, the answer is not simple. There's no one-size-fits-all formula for success. So before we get into the different personalities, let's just get on the same page about what the word entrepreneur really means. So what are we talking about here? Well, the word entrepreneur actually comes from the French verb entreprendre, which literally just means to undertake. And that's really the perfect way to describe it, isn't it? It's somebody who undertakes a brand new venture. They shoulder most of the risk for the shot at getting most of the reward. But it's so much more than just having one good idea. An entrepreneur is a risk taker, an innovator, and a master organizer, all rolled into one. They have to kind of see the future, pull together the resources, and steer the ship even when the waters are totally choppy. It's a juggling act of incredible proportions. Okay, so let's meet our first 2 personalities. I've kind of grouped them together as the creators. Both of them build new things from nothing, but their approaches couldn't be more different. One builds with this grand vision, the other with just pure force of will. First up, we've got the innovator. The classic example? Steve Jobs. These aren't people who just want to, make a better mousetrap. They want to imagine a world that doesn't even need mice. They are driven by a vision to fundamentally change how we all live and work. And listen to that last part, creating a new crowd. This is so key. Innovators don't just compete in a market that's already there. They invent a brand new one. I mean, think about the very first iPhone. Nobody was asking for that, but it created a market that now basically defines our lives. That is the power of the innovator. But here's the catch. As an innovator, yeah, you get all the glory and you have this wide open playing field, but you're also kind of out there on your own. It takes a ton of capital and a whole lot of patience to convince the world to believe in a future that only you can see. It is a very high-risk, high-reward game. Now, on the complete opposite end of that spectrum, you've got the hustler. Forget the grand vision for a second. This is all about pure, relentless grit. You got to think of someone like Mark Cuban, who literally started his journey selling trash bags door to door. So while innovators might be waiting for those big funding checks to come in, hustlers are already out there making it happen. They're fueled by this just unstoppable self-belief. They don't wait for permission, they don't wait for funding, they just flat out outwork everybody else in the room. And here's the interesting thing about the hustler. Their greatest strength is also their biggest weakness. That relentless drive and that super thick skin, it can move mountains for sure, but it can also lead to complete and total burnout, not just for them, but for their entire team. Does that sound like anyone you know? Okay, our next 2 personalities aren't really about creating something brand new from nothing. I call these 2 the analysts. Their whole game is about studying what's already working and then figuring out how to make it way better through careful, smart execution. First up is the imitator. And hey, don't let the name fool you. In the business world, this is an incredibly smart strategy. Think about Alibaba. They saw the blueprint for e-commerce success that Amazon laid out, and they basically thought, you know what? We can improve on that for our market. Their motto is pretty much, why reinvent the wheel when you can perfect it? They're this really powerful mix of the innovator and the hustler, but with a huge advantage. They get to learn from all the mistakes the first person made. So the upside is pretty obvious. It's a lot less risky to improve on a model you already know works than it is to invent one. But the downside? You are always in the shadow of the original, constantly fighting to prove you're not just a copy, but a real upgrade. So our second analyst is the researcher. Now, if the imitator learns from other businesses, the researcher learns from data itself. Think Elon Musk. Tesla and SpaceX aren't just wild ideas, they are built on mountains of physics, engineering, and just first principles thinking. And this right here gets to their core belief. Failure is something you can prevent. The researcher is absolutely convinced that with enough data, enough planning, and enough analysis, you can basically engineer risk right out of the equation. It's this fascinating quest for certainty. Now, this makes them incredibly prepared. They're all about data, not gut feelings. But there's a danger there too. In a fast-moving market, their careful, meticulous process can turn into analysis paralysis, and that can cause them to miss their window of opportunity completely. And that brings us to our final, and maybe the most unique personality. This one plays a completely different game. So let's meet the strategist, the buyer. For the buyer, their main tool isn't a new idea or just raw grit. It's capital. Warren Buffett is the absolute classic example here. His genius isn't in building companies from scratch, but in identifying great ones and then acquiring them. So their skill isn't creation, it's curation. They have this amazing eye for spotting potential that other people might miss. But their whole strategy only works if they can put the absolute perfect team in place to unlock all that value and grow the business. On one hand, their path is usually safer. They're buying into a market and customer base that already exists. But it's a very high-stakes game. It requires huge amounts of wealth, and there's always the risk of overpaying, or worse, buying a business that has hidden problems that even money can't fix. So after hearing about all five, the innovator, the hustler, the imitator, the researcher, and the buyer, did one of them feel familiar? Maybe you saw a little bit of yourself in how they approach things. But look, here is the most important thing to take away from all this. There is no single best personality. There is no one right way to be an entrepreneur. The real key here is self-awareness, understanding your own natural strengths, really sharpening them, and then consciously working to build up the skills that you lack. So, you've met the archetypes. You've seen the different blueprints for how things get built. The only question left is, which one are you and what are you going to build?